I'm Josh Becker, state senator, representing California's 13th Senate District. Okay, thank you. Just south of here, I sometimes have to remind people in San Francisco, there's a land south of San Francisco. People live there, I represent those people. Most of San Mateo County and northern part of Santa Clara County. Tonight I'll be talking with Emily Galvin Almanza about her new book, The Price of Mercy, Unfair Trials, a Violent System, and a Public Defender's Search for Justice in America. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about our speaker. Emily is the co-founder and executive director of Partners for Justice, a nonprofit creating a new collaborative model of public defense designed to empower defenders nationwide. Prior to founding PFJ, Emily fought for clients inside the LA County Public Defender, Santa Clara County Public Defender, Bronx Defenders, and with the Stanford Three Strikes Project. Her new book, as we mentioned, right here, The Price of Mercy, Unfair Trials, a Violent System, and a Public Defender's Search for Justice in America. I wish we had, we have a lot more people. I wish we had about 3 hours for this, but I wrote down a few questions that I want to get started with. And first of all, thank you. Thanks for writing this book, and thank you all for you all being here today.
Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, all right. So you trace the origins of public defense back to, and I'm a history major, so I was fascinated by this, to Clara Shortridge Foltz, whose role has been largely overlooked. Can you tell us a little bit her story?
I love talking about Clara's story because she's from Iowa like me, but a California transplant can do really good things. She married a Union soldier and ran away as a teenager, and she ended up with 5 kids abandoned in San Jose. And she had been working for a judge, and she was sort of watching what happened in that judge's world, and she thought, I could do this job. She wanted to become an attorney. But at that time, the law in California only allowed white men to be attorneys. So Clara decided she was going to change the law. And she wrote a bill that changed the language from saying only white men could be attorneys to any person could become an attorney. And she actually got that bill passed, and it was in the discard pile in the governor's office. Right before midnight at the deadline, Clara marches in and takes it out of the discard pile and makes him sign it then and there. She's a very forceful woman, small but forceful. And she became one of the first women attorneys in the country. What's significant about this is that as any marginalized attorney can attest, there is a very special relationship between marginalized communities and marginalized attorneys. And so the clients who she was briefly prosecuting, but the people she defended tended to be people who had no one else left to defend them. And she gave this speech at the World's Columbian Exposition in 1893 in Chicago, where she described our criminal legal system. And if you read the speech, I really recommend you read it. It's on a website I found called Speaking While Female. She described something that literally could be our system today. An overpowered prosecution, police corruption, no expense being spared for the condemnation of people, but no expense being given for the protection of the innocent. And she basically made the argument that if the government takes on a duty to prosecute people, the government also holds a duty to defend them. Now, I'm very proud to say that although it took the rest of the country a really long time to get there, the LA County Public Defender's Office opened its doors just a little over a decade later in 1913, being the oldest and now largest public defender office in the nation. Good for California.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get right into it. First, that is great history. I did not know that before this book. I'm going to get right into it. There's a chapter you call The Grind. You describe how simply surviving the court process becomes its own form of punishment. Missed work, transportation costs, childcare, repeated court days destabilize people's lives. I think that's one aspect of our system that's is kind of invisible to folks. Why do you think this kind of harm is so invisible in public conversations about justice?
Well, I want to start by being very clear that this isn't a system that impacts only a few people. Many people outside the system assume that contact with it is rare, but in fact, we're living in a country where at this point, half of American families have had a loved one locked up. And because so many of them are represented by public defenders, literally a third of Americans have had a loved one represented by a free lawyer. So the scale is huge. What's concealing it is that people aren't talking about their experiences because there is so much stigma. There's so much silencing, so much pressure to never reveal what actually happens. And what actually happens is very different than what people imagine. People imagine, you get arrested, probably because you did something, and then, 2 or 3 court dates later, justice is seen to, and you have a trial and it's done, right? But in fact, one, when people get arrested, I can attest as a defender who has represented at this point over 2,000 people, the government gets it wrong a lot more than you'd think. There's a lot of people who didn't do anything wrong in that system, and there's a lot of people who did something, but certainly not anything as bad as what they've been accused of. And those people are dragged through a process that can go on for years. If you're out of custody, if you're lucky enough to fight a case from home, you still have to, every month or every few weeks, take a day off from work, find childcare, find transportation, go to the courthouse, pay for parking, get in there by 8:30 a.m., and then sit there all day being treated like a criminal, not allowed to look at your phone, not allowed to read, not allowed to do any work while you're there for 8 hours, only to have nothing happen in your case because the prosecution wasn't ready, or the right evidence wasn't handed over, or the judge doesn't have time on his calendar that day for whatever you need to have happen next. And this can drag on for years. Think 12, 16, 18 court dates. And that's if you're lucky. If you're in custody, you've already lost that job. Who knows how you're going to keep your housing? You can't make rent. You've been cut off from public benefits. Most people don't know that when you go to jail, and jails, by the way, are 70% of their population is people who haven't yet been convicted. Mm-hmm. A lot of legally innocent people sitting there, cut off from their medications. Jails want to re-diagnose and re-prescribe every person who comes through, which means that if you're taking an anti-rejection medication for an organ transplant or a vital mental health medication, you're out of luck till the jail gets around to seeing to you. People have died that way. And so for you, a court date looks like being awakened at 3 a.m, no food, it's freezing, you're put on a bus, you're put in the bowels of the courthouse, you don't know if you're going to get to see your lawyer or even if you're going to be brought up to court that day. You might not even know what's even happening in your case. And then somebody says to you, hey, if you just plead guilty, we can end this right now. And you can go back to your life. Who wouldn't at that point capitulate? When we look at wrongful convictions, a stunning proportion of them involved a guilty plea. And that's because this system can get people to capitulate even if they are completely innocent.
And you say that in the book, that people detained pre-trial plead guilty about 3 times faster than those fighting those cases at home. So being released pre-trial reduces the likelihood of pleading guilty by almost 20%.
Exactly. It's a huge difference for justice. It's a huge difference for the accuracy of outcomes in the system when people have the ability to actually withstand process and see the evidence against them. This is very significant because more than 90% of cases never make it to trial. And because a lot of jurisdictions don't require prosecutors to hand over evidence until the trial, tons of people, tens of thousands of people are pleading guilty, not having fully seen the evidence against them, not even really knowing what the case was. So when we think about the most important moment to invest in a case, I often tell people, I think a lot of defenders agree, that it's that first appearance where bail is set. Because that's going to determine the circumstances of how a person can fight for their future. And there are still in this country so many jurisdictions where people don't have an attorney at that stage. They're standing up there by themselves, no idea what's going to happen next. I myself have been the kid in the room not knowing what the legalese was around me. That was my teenage years. We ask people to decide for themselves at that stage, hey, you want to plea today? You want to go home today? Otherwise, we might set bail with no counsel there to say, stick it out. The evidence against you is really, really weak. You shouldn't. Or, hey, just so you know, if you take that plea, you're going to lose your job because you have a security guard license and you can't have a security guard license and take that plea. It's astonishing to me that we have a constitutional right to counsel, but we don't have a constitutional mandate as to when you get counsel.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think that's part that I encourage people to read the book to see the illustrations of that. But we don't realize just how much the pressure is to plead, right? And maybe you'll talk a little bit about how charges kind of get stacked up, and how that leads to the incentive to plea. If you could mention that. But then also you read that you write that there are 40,000 collateral consequences from a single conviction. So can you maybe you can talk about that pressure to plead, and then can you give us examples of the collateral consequences?
Absolutely. So an example of charge stacking is what we call it. We hold this mic right here? Okay. All right. So charge stacking is when the prosecutor chooses much more serious charges than are probably actually merited by whatever a person did. This is what I mean when I say some people did something, but nothing as bad as what they're accused of. What I mean is, let's say a little girl punches a bully at school. Now, where I grew up, sometimes you say that's okay. But, or, maybe give her after school detention, right? But technically, that can be charged as a misdemeanor assault. One punch between kids, misdemeanor assault, okay. If the prosecutor, and I'm not making this up out of the blue, this is a case that I've seen. If a prosecutor wants to increase the pressure on that child to take a guilty plea to something, a misdemeanor, let's say, that prosecutor may file charges for felony assault, assault with intent to cause great bodily injury, or assault with a deadly weapon because the kid was wearing a little ring. Now, once the upper end of what that kid is facing is suddenly the kind of charges that could give her an adult record in this state, and the prosecutor says, just plead guilty to the misdemeanor, suddenly the misdemeanor seems like a really good option. And we haven't found fairness because the right answer for that kid probably wasn't a criminal record at all. The right answer for that kid probably was, first of all, somebody intervening in the bullying that's happening in the school, but also some sort of restorative opportunity where she could learn from the experience and grow and become stronger for it. The charge stacking in this country is rampant because prosecutors have exclusive control over what charges they select. A judge can't necessarily intervene and say, we don't like the way you're picking charges. Judges can dismiss some charges in the interest of justice, but the willingness to do that among judges is extremely, extremely low. They're very deferential to the prosecutor's charging choices. So you see a lot of people who take the 20 years in prison because their upper end was otherwise 165. I forgot the second part of your question.
Well, actually, it's good. I'm glad you did, because I wanted to segue from that, because children are especially vulnerable, right? Because 90% of children, as you write in the book, waive their right to a lawyer in custody, and over 1/3 then falsely confess. Now, here's where there's some good news. In California, and we're debating about this earlier, whether we're the first in the country to do this, but we passed, my colleague Steve Bradford, my first year in 2021, passed a law that police cannot interrogate any youth 17 years or younger unless that youth has consulted an attorney. And then in 2024, we passed a law that prohibits law enforcement from using deceptive tactics during interrogation of youth up to age 17. Explain why you think those are helpful.
This is a really big deal. This is a really big deal that more states need to follow. Okay. So children are uniquely susceptible to police techniques. And I need you to know, this is another thing most people don't know about the system. Police interrogation techniques are not designed to get to the truth. They're designed to elicit a confession. If you ask most people, hey, actually, I'm going to ask you guys right now, do you think you would ever confess to a crime you didn't commit? You think, no. Thank you. No. Most people say, no, of course I would never do that. But in fact, when we look at wrongful convictions, I think it's around 13% of them that involved a confession. So how are people being ground down into confessing to stuff they didn't do? Well, police are allowed to hold people for very long periods of time, not let them go to the bathroom, not let them get any sleep. They're allowed to lie to them. I remember a case in which a witness of mine had given false testimony against somebody, and that kid was now facing double life sentences. And that witness had broken down in tears on the witness stand, and he'd said, I'm so sorry, I lied. The cops told me I'd never see my mom again if I didn't do what they said. Well, it turns out children are even more susceptible than adults to this kind of pressure. Children children falsely confess at much higher rates than adults. When you look at the younger children, like children 15 and under, we're talking around 80% will falsely confess if subjected to the Reid technique, which is what this technique of using deception and pressure is called. And you'd say, well, shouldn't kids be protected from that by a lawyer? Well, 90% of kids will give up their right to a lawyer if interrogated by police. They'll say, well, do I need a lawyer? And the cops will say, that's up to you. And they'll say, okay, I guess I can talk to you. I mean, it's terrible. It's actually such a big problem that My next writing project, if you get a book here tonight, you're going to get a little red card in your book that says Andromeda Diaz and the Reasonable Doubt. It's a book I'm writing for middle grade readers, which is about a little girl whose parents are public defenders, so she knows everybody's rights. And when her friend is accused of something he didn't do at school, she's able to teach the other kids how to handle accusation and how to invoke their rights and how to remain silent and how to protect themselves. Because it's something we need to be teaching our children, because they are having these experiences. There are police in schools. There are police stopping kids on the way home from school. And California, I think, might be the only state. It's the only one I've heard of, so my knowledge may not be complete. I haven't researched it yet. But California has taken these incredible steps to protect our children and to give them what any parent would want, right? If your kid is alone in an interrogation room with a cop, you want your kid to have a lawyer. You want your kid to not be lied to by an adult. So I'm really proud of the state for taking that step. I think it's incredible, and more states should follow suit.
Good. Well, hopefully there'll be other examples of that, of good things we've done here in California. But you write, and I was looking for there's a shocking stats piece too you had. I mean, again, just to give people a perspective, right? I think it's 1 in 5 African-American males have been locked up in this country. You gave the stat about 50% of people know somebody who's locked up. Here in California, we've reduced the prison population. It was up to about 190,000. And we're down to closer to 95,000 or 100,000 now. And maybe we'll talk about some of the work we've done in sentencing as well. But I want to talk, personally, you note in the book how you walked into a courtroom of a judge who had decided that when he looked at children, he would see their potential rather than focusing on the specter of threat. And I do want to note, we do have many good judges in this state, many good district attorneys and police. I do want to note that here in California, we're lucky. But you mentioned that this case of yours, and that's really what we're trying to do with this new bill this year, SB 1009, right? Give judges more discretion for alternative or less restrictive placements for youth. But tell me how that affected your life. How did that change your life?
So when I was a kid, I was about 15 or 16. Well, it was many years that I went through a bit of a hard time as a kid. And one of the things that came about during that time for me was that I got arrested and that I had to walk into a courtroom and stand in front of a judge and, like I said, not know what was going on or what was going to happen next. And I got very lucky. I, of course, had a lot of privilege walking into that room. I was the only white kid in the room. I was there with very involved parents and with a good education. I had actually already been admitted to college. And I was standing to lose all of that because, of course, if I had any conviction, my acceptance would have been rescinded and things would have changed for me drastically. But I also got lucky in the biggest way of all, which was I walked into the courtroom of Judge Leslie Harris. And Judge Harris, who I interviewed for the book and who is to this day one of my heroes, had a really different perspective on the bench. He himself had grown up on the south side of Chicago. He was one of the only black jurists at a time when the culture was such that he would often not be treated as a judge when he walked into courthouses, even if he was wearing his robe. And he had made it his mission to see potential in children and to look at all of us in his courtroom and think about where we could go instead of where we had been, and also to not see us as threats. And so he used every inch of leeway that he had. And this is why this bill is so good, to give good judges the ability to do magical things for kids. He called me up to the bench and I went up there without my lawyer. And I remember being terrified. And he looked down at me and he said, "What are you doing here? You've gotten to college. Why are you here?" And I don't know what I said because I was a teenager and it was probably really dumb. But he said, "I don't ever want to see you again. I'm going to dismiss this case. I'm going to expunge the record. Never come back here. I don't want to hear from you unless you've done something good with your life." And so because of him, and this is what I mean about giving them freedom, because of him, I went to college and I went to law school and I was able to become a public defender because of him. And because of him, when I walked into my first job, my 1L summer in the LA County Public Defender's Office, they sent me to East Lake Juvenile, which was the busiest juvenile courthouse in LA at the time. And I was walking into rooms with kids who had done stuff I had exactly done, except for they were black and brown in East LA, and I was not. And so for me, my perspective as a lawyer has never been particularly theoretical. It's been very human-centered. And I think we need so much more of that in our system. And this is what I mean about the kind of freedom and discretion that you can give judges to see the potential in a kid, to see the human, to color outside the lines a little bit, to make new things possible. Years later, I actually wrote to Judge Harris and I told him I'd become a public defender. And I kind of see like my clients are like his grand clients, you know, because he made it all possible. And I didn't know this until I interviewed him for the book, but he told me that he had been on the verge of leaving the bench because he had just lost one of the kids in his courtroom. He'd had a young person shot and killed. And he was so devastated and questioning his abilities. I think the way he phrased it to me, which I have in the book, is, you know, if I can't save every kid, what am I doing here? And then he got my letter at this right moment. And much to my joy, he told me later that it had kept him on the bench for a few more years. And so more children got the benefit of his leadership and his vision and his discretion, which is perhaps the best thing of all.
Yeah. But I thank you for sharing that. You know, and you, at a time in this country, you know, you wouldn't, there's so much other stuff going on, but this book, I think, is breaking through. The fact you were on Lawrence O'Donnell the other night, breaking through with a message of hope and what we can accomplish in the system. And his message now reaching, Judge Harris's message reaching so many more through you. The question I had asked before was about, you mentioned there's 40,000 collateral consequences from a single conviction. So if you had a conviction and it was on your record, you would have experienced this directly, but now you obviously experienced it through your clients. Tell us about what are some of those consequences. What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that people don't realize that a conviction touches almost every aspect of your ability to find stability in this country. A conviction can keep you from voting. A conviction can keep you from serving on a jury. So there go our two most important civic duties right there. And the ones that give us a political voice and the ones that make us a constituency that lawmakers have to listen to, right? If you can't vote, you can't be on a jury. Already you've been silenced in a huge way. But then there's other things. You might not be able to get a professional license. And this is something I'm so excited that you're working on. There are so many careers, including, really paradoxically, careers people train for in prison that you then can't get a license to do outside of prison. Barbering really drives me crazy this way, right? We are not in a Sweeney Todd world. I do, right? Like, I'm not scared of the barbers. And barbering is something that people can become really skilled at when they're serving time. And then they get out and they find out, well, you can't get a license to do that. Can't get a security guard license. Can't get all manner of other licenses, even for convictions that have nothing to do with the job you're trying to get. There are other things. There are certain bars from housing. It can be very hard to get an apartment. There are landlords who do criminal background checks. And by the way, when we talk about background checks, I think it's really important to note, these are not necessarily accurate background checks. The way a lot of private background check companies work is that they gather records from the courthouse while cases are still open, before those cases are resolved. Because, of course, if a case like mine gets dismissed and sealed and expunged, the background check company's not supposed to have that case anymore, but they get it while it's still open. And with cases pending for years at a time, they have a big, long window in which to gather these cases. So a person's arrest, just the arrest, can follow them around and prevent them from getting employment. One of my clients who I write about in the book and I want to be clear, this is a collaboration. So when I'm telling stories, it's an act of partnership. There's actually someone here tonight whose story I had the honor of telling. And so when I make reference to these stories, I want you guys to know that I'm doing it with permission and collaboration. But Janelle, was working for the Department of Education in New York City, loved her career, really happy in her career, was accused of something truly ridiculous. I tell the story in detail in the book, but essentially she followed some bad advice from a customer service person on the phone about how to fill out her insurance paperwork when her car disappeared. And because of one mistake, the NYPD and the Bronx District Attorney's Office decided that she was the mastermind of a huge insurance fraud scheme, which of course there's no evidence for. It took us years to get that case dismissed, and we got it fully dismissed. But to this day, that felony arrest, keeps her out of her calling, which was working in education. Beyond that, we don't think of the health implications, the ability to get access to treatments, to doctors, to get insurance, there's 40,000 consequences. I literally cannot list them all. And I often don't like the phrase collateral consequences because it makes them sound like a side dish, like it's just some little thing that might not bother you too much. It's really an enmeshed penalty. It is an extra punishment that we don't legally consider part of the punishment. So it's holding us back in ridiculous ways. When we look at the amount of money Americans are losing from this system, American families who've had a family member incarcerated literally lose $300 billion every year because of lost income. Being incarcerated cuts your expected lifetime earnings in half. And this affects all of us, right? That's money people aren't spending at the corner store. That's taxes people aren't paying. This is a big economic dent that we're causing for ourselves. And oh, by the way, it's also making us less safe because the research on this shows that when people can get jobs and opportunities and housing and healthcare after they've had a brush with the system, they're much less likely to ever come back into the system. So all of these quote unquote collateral consequences that prevent people from getting healthcare and housing and income, those are the three factors that matter most for our future safety. And we're shooting ourselves in the foot on all of them.
I have a lot of thoughts there.
Well, you're going to fix it.
Well, yeah, and we talked about some of the things that we're doing here. So again, just so folks know, when the free prison phone calls, right? And I think that's an example of a exploitative system in most of the country where you have 1 in 3 families who are going into debt just to keep in touch with their loved ones. And they've just lost the breadwinner who you described, who's going to have their earnings cut in half in their lifetime. And so before we passed this bill, families were spending $68 million a year. And again, these are families, many who are poor anyway, not all, but many who were, and then again, have lost a breadwinner, just keeping in touch with their loved ones. And despite the fact that it's also, in addition to the fact it was like this incredibly confusing, someone calls you and you're going to type in your 10-digit.
It's so annoying to do.
Yeah.
By the way, as somebody who's done it a lot, like typing in all the digits and then you get cut off after 15 minutes anyway and you've somehow spent $100.
Yeah. And so I passed a bill to change that here and to have free prison phone calls in California. And the number of prison phone call minutes went up 3x by 80 million minutes a month. They've increased. So now we went from 40 million minutes where people were paying exorbitant fees to 120 million minutes a month. That's free. And I was in Soledad prison recently, and someone came up to me and they said they lost touch with his family for 10 years. And then through my bill, he was able to reestablish connections. We call it Keep Families Connected because we want these families connected. And now we're working on a bill around text messaging because they still charge 5 cents for every text messaging. For those of us here, text messaging is free. If you're in prison, it's 5 cents every text message.
And how much do people make per hour for their labor when they're inside prison where slavery is still legal?
Yes.
I mean, that 5 cents is
about 19 cents here.
Yeah.
Eight cents the lowest.
Yeah, around 8 cents.
1 hour of labor almost per text message.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Which is why we had to know that. So, when we think about this, and I'll just, the way I think about it with my team, and Jared and Anthony are here and others, we have 4 categories. We think of the school to prison pipeline. Number 1, we think about sentencing reform. We can talk about the work we've done, the felony murder bill. Third is really conditions in prison and parole, and then reentry.
This is literally the structure of my book.
All right. Yes.
We're thinking in similar ladders.
Very similar. And so that's how we think about it. But the conditions in prison, the other part was the prison canteen. There was like these exorbitant markups for prison. A little tube of toothpaste would be $6. And so if you had a loved one in there, you put $200 a month into their fund. Half of it goes to restitution, which is varied over time. So now it's $100, and then, you're.
And can I talk about that for a second? So one thing we almost never talk about in terms of the benefit of reforms like this is how it affects people's relationships and their day-to-day ability to get along. So, for example, if you are in prison and you make 8 cents an hour and your toothpaste costs, what did you say, $6?
Yeah.
$6 for a little tiny like airplane tube? You are constantly having to ask people on the outside for help. And when you have to do that, it fractures your relationships. You're not there day to day. You are not having a lot of communicative contact. And the way you're showing up for your loved ones is by saying, can you help me out again? And oh yeah, by the time you get out, you're going to need even more help because you're going to need a place to stay. You're going to need help finding work. I mean, how people do when they come home. And by the way, pretty much everybody comes home. More than 90% of people come home. All we're figuring out as a community is how we have them come home. They're coming home to a family that is already so stretched and so indebted and so fractured by their absence that it becomes really, really hard to maintain positive dynamics and relationships. The same thing is actually true of the communication piece you mentioned. So there's a really interesting study in the book about how contact with loved ones impacts not only, I mean, you can probably guess, a lot of contact with loved ones means people come home better, right? They're more likely to succeed when they come home if they have a strong network waiting for them. But it also impacts the safety inside the prison. Because when people have no visits, when they have no ability to make calls, when they have no ability to talk to their children, when that hopelessness sets in and that isolation, violence inside the prison rises. It is less safe for the people who are confined there. It is less safe for the people working there. It's less safe for everybody. There's a big issue right now nationally. Have you heard this conversation about the right to hug?
No, only a little bit.
So I was talking to Alec Karakatsanis about this, this is something he's spearheading. There's a really troubling trend right now where as prisons switch to virtual visits and they move visits from in-person to tablets, they are increasing the pressure to utilize the tablets by not letting people have physical contact during in-person visits, which means you can't hug your kids. They are literally preventing children from hugging their parents. And this to me feels like the kind of legislation that feels very sympathetic, right? Like you got a right to hug. You got a right to hug your kids. Prisons should not be allowed to cut off in-person visitation just because they have tablets now. The research on it says violence will go through the roof if they do this, by the way. It's a really, really bad move for safety, but it is a profitable move for other industries.
A couple of things I really want to get to, and then we're going to get back to the role of public defender. One thing that really struck me when I started looking at our California prisons is someone I knew who ended up there, and then after he was released, is that we had, I don't know the exact stat right now, but at least as of a few years ago, we had 3 times as many people serving life sentences as Texas. Wow. Even though we're only about 40% larger as a state, and you think of Texas as a not the most lenient state. So a lot of people serving life sentences, and many of those are sentenced to life as juveniles, despite what we've learned about brain development. I mean, why is this still happening, and can you highlight the harm of sentencing young people to a length of sentence?
We in this country have a really warped sense of time in our criminal court system. The sentences we hand out as attractive offers would be considered an absolute maximum for the most heinous crime you can think of in similarly situated Western civilizations. We have skewed our sense of time through decades and decades of imposing the harshest sentences we can come up with. And the result has not been safety. We still have roughly a 60% recidivism rate across the country, meaning that when people come home, about 60% of them go back within 5 years. So we clearly haven't punished our way to safety. What the research is telling us is that all of this exposure to incarceration is actually criminogenic. Literally, when you look at, for example, pretrial jailing, if you've got 2 people who were equally unlikely to ever commit crime in the future, and you expose one of them to 2 days of jail and the other one to 7 days of jail, the 7-day person has a higher likelihood of coming back into the system, even though they were equal before they were exposed to that trauma and that space where 80% of people witness or experience violence daily. What we've done to children in this country is unconscionable. I mean, think about it this way. Are you the same person you were 10 years ago? 20 years ago? It's laugh. I hear you laughing, right? Like 20 years ago, I don't even know who I was. She had much bigger shoes. I don't know. But no, fundamentally, I was a really different, I wasn't yet a parent. I hadn't matured. I was a very, very, and we know also about young people's brains. Their brains aren't done growing. They're also not done growing when they're 18. If you ask actually Judge Harris about this, he has a really smart plan to raise the age of culpability to reflect neurological realities about impulse control and decision making. And a big misconception among people who don't have contact with the system is that the lives we're throwing away didn't have value anyway. They were just people who were going to engage in harm. And we're all safer because they were put away for 50 years. But one thing I really wanted to highlight in the book is that our prisons are full of talent. They're full of leadership. They're full of innovation. I think one quote, I think it was my friend in the book, Amir, who I think maybe it was Amir. I don't remember who it was, that said that there are people in there doing like NASA level engineering to make a tattoo pen, right? But also there are people who've proven this by, upon release, going to work at some of the top law schools in the country, or becoming entrepreneurs, starting new companies, working in the highest echelons of academia, of the law, of business, of finance. I really cannot emphasize enough to you how much people misimagine whose lives we're talking about and the potential they hold. And I don't know, aside from elevating the stories of more people and encouraging people who've experienced incarceration to take that platform and be visible and show their leadership and brilliance, I don't know how we get that cultural change that we need to get, where the idea of a 20-year sentence horrifies us.
Yeah. And I want to here really give a shout out to the Senate in California and our Secretary of Senate, who's been really terrific about hiring second chancers, people for murder life sentences. We have a number of them in our Senate now, and phenomenal people doing incredible work. And she's really deserves a big kudos for giving that chance.
Absolutely. And I will tell you this, there's a study in the book that showed that when you survey managers at companies who have hired formerly incarcerated people, 86% of them rate their formerly incarcerated employees as high or higher than their non-formally incarcerated employees. Yeah. So, I just want to be clear that this isn't a good ethical thing to do. It's also people who are killing it on the job and doing amazing work and increasing productivity and bringing innovation to the legislature and using their different background and experience to have insights that the rest of us wouldn't necessarily have. So it's a good strategic move.
Well, we've had attempts to end life without parole in California, and those have made it quite far, just not quite far enough. So probably something we're going to have to take on again in the next term. But we are doing progress in sentencing, getting rid of the felony murder rule. Maybe you could talk about that. That's a rule that, yeah.
Ooh, yeah. For those of you who don't know, felony murder is usually the thing that a lot of people find most shocking as this weird little dark corner of the law. So the felony murder rule basically says that if a person is involved in a felony, maybe say be in the lookout while their friends are doing some knucklehead stuff, and somebody dies during that felony, everybody's responsible for that as murder. So one way in which you've seen this manifest, for example, is a robbery is happening. Somebody's the lookout. The police shoot one of the robbers, and the lookout is prosecuted for murdering the robber. Yeah, I see your face. It does not make a lot. It's befuddling, right? This person who didn't kill anybody is suddenly responsible for murder, not manslaughter, not involuntary homicide. This is a felony murder rule. California is taking, again, a position of leadership among the states in saying that this doesn't make sense. And by the way, this doesn't mean relieving somebody of culpability when they've engaged in harm. There are other ways of finding accountability for the person who took part as a lookout. But you should treat the facts as they are and not allow these very strange legalistic maneuvers that give prosecutors an undue amount of power to pressure people, to tie judges' hands, cost people their lives, and cost taxpayers unbelievable quantities of money, swelling the prison population.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. And the stats that we've had in the 5 years we've done this, and I shout out to my colleague Nancy Skinner. So she did the first part of it, and I did the second part of it, and it's saved. So it's shaved 11,000 hours off of sentences, and that's resulted in $300 million worth of savings now to California through ending this practice, right? Which made no sense really at all. Anyway,
it made no sense. It brings people home. It saves people money, and it also just is the right thing to do. Yeah. And how often do you get to say that, my government just did the right thing on that one?
Yeah.
I feel like I don't get to say that very much anymore.
Yes, we're trying. One other topic before I get to the two topics I want to get to before we get to questions. solitary confinement. I know people and friends in this room who have survived solitary and made it become amazing people, but it's still a horrific practice. And you say about 1 in 20 people in U.S. jails and prisons are in solitary confinement at any given time. Why is this still so prevalent?
This is what I mean. I feel like I want to emphasize that half of this book is about hope, that half of the book is solutions that are really common sense and achievable. And one of the things that drives me wild is like, when we think about something like solitary, the justification for solitary, you've all heard it, right, is some people are not safe to be around other people. And we have to get those people away from those that they are imperiling, which is true. Absolutely. We are in a society where sometimes people are not safe to be around other people. I acknowledge that. But total isolation destroys mental health. It spurs suicidality. It drives people literally to serious mental illness. There's no reason for it. I mean, if you just take a step back and break out of the prison ideas that we currently hold and you think, could we have a person not be in physical contact with anybody else, but have them be able to talk to folks, have them be able to do activities, to receive education, to receive therapy, to receive communication? Yeah, there's a million ways to do that. You don't have to be physically with somebody to be able to be with them. And I know that it's not what I'm saying about the right to hug. I recognize there's tension here. But when we're talking about a very serious, grave safety threat that necessitates separating a person from others, there's no reason that the answer to that has to be total isolation, which we know from a ton of studies is worse for everyone involved and worse for safety down the line. And also just deeply inhumane and internationally considered torture. I want to emphasize that in the United States, we isolate people in solitary for periods of time that shock the rest of the world. I mean, the rest of the world considers this torture if you go past a number of days of isolation. We've got people who've been in solitary for years and years and years. And there's no reason why we need to do that. I understand that it is less convenient for prisons to have to ensure that people have support, communication, access, and resources, even when they're not safe to be around others. I know that's harder, but it's the right thing to do for safety down the line. And it's the right thing to do morally.
I'm trying to see where to go here. I still have to get in here for questions. I do want to give you a chance. I'm curious of your view. Obviously, your organization, your day job really is, a lot of public defenders end up serving as essentially social workers, right? And you're helping them, but they're not trained as social workers. So your organization helps them do that, all the other things that they have to help these people with. Maybe you can comment on that, but also, I think nationally, and 80% of people rely on public defenders, 80%. Nationally, we have a shortage and a crisis. What would you want people here in this room to know about public defenders and how are we doing in California? Okay,
first of all, if you're in this room tonight and you're a public defender, or a public defender client advocate, will you make a little bit of noise for me? It's good to have you all here. All right, so public defenders are an incredible resource in the system. We think of them as constitutionally mandated criminal defense counsel. Some people think of them as an unpleasant constitutional obligation. But what public defenders actually are is they are one of the only places in the system where a person in need of help can get it. For some people, it's the only lawyer they're ever going to have in their life, right? They come into a case as early as possible. We need to get them into more early bail setting stages, but in general, they are assigned at an early stage of the proceedings. They have a special confidentiality so that their clients can be honest with them about what's really going on and what help they actually need and what messes are happening and what went wrong, which means they have a unique ability to help if they are given the resources to do so. Because you're right, I'm a criminal defense lawyer, guys. I'm not actually amazing at like signing people up for benefits. I find federal benefits extremely confusing. So what we actually need to bring public defense into its fullest ability to do good is to infuse them with interdisciplinary specialists and teams. What I do at Partners for Justice is basically bring non-attorney service specialists who are also really, really good storytellers into public defender offices. We call them client advocates. There are many of them here tonight who I'm so proud of, who are changing the world. And when I say they're changing the world, here's what I mean. When you bring client advocates into public defense, Suddenly that defender doesn't have to say to their client, I'm so sorry, I know you're getting evicted, but I can't help with that. Suddenly they can say, oh, you need someone to connect you with this organization, with benefits, you're running out of food halfway through the month. I've got you. Let me walk you down the hall to my colleague's office who can help take care of that for you. And then the lawyer can focus on the lawyer stuff, and the client advocates can help the person with these urgent unravelings in their life. Why is this so important? Because study after study has shown us that when a person has housing, income, and access to healthcare, they are much less likely to engage in harm. So when we infuse defenders with the ability to provide housing, income, and access to healthcare, they become an engine of safety for the community. Now, even without bringing in extra resources, defenders are already doing so much more work than we realize they're doing. Every time a defender says to a judge, I know you want this person to get jail, but here's actually a treatment program that would be a really, really good option for them. They've never been able to do drug treatment before. They've always wanted to. I can get them inpatient care. Would you let us try that instead of incarceration? That defender has just done healthcare work. That is a public health intervention. Every year of incarceration shaves 2 years off a person's expected lifespan, and 80% of people come home with a long-term illness that we as taxpayers then pay for. But when a defender prevents that person from going in the first place, they've done another healthcare intervention. When they prevent a person from taking that plea that's going to cost that person their security guard license, that's an economic mobility intervention. That's a public defender being part of our local economy and helping it thrive. So defenders are this sort of like invisible engine of good. I'm very proud to say that in our work at Partners for Justice, between 2018 and now, just by bringing client advocates to public defenders' offices, the defenders we work with have eliminated about 9,000 years of potential incarceration. And we just did an outside study that showed that when you have these client advocate teams, we can increase dismissals and diversions, safe ways of getting somebody away from the prison system, by nearly 50%. So it's very exciting stuff. I think it's the wave of the future. And I also think that if lawmakers understood how much of an impact defenders can have on public health, public safety, and economic mobility, they would finally resource defenders as what they actually are, which is a really vital piece of public infrastructure and not an unpleasant constitutional necessity.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's so much. I mean, it gets everything we talked about, right? Avoiding helping people avoid just the negative consequences, not just of a conviction, but of the interaction with the system, all the wear and tear that takes. I want to ask, because it kind of gets to one of the questions that was asked about a case recently here in San Francisco. But you noted that many readers ask whether mercy means ignoring harm. So how do you respond to that fear, particularly in this city, especially went through this property crime piece where people were really concerned that felt there was maybe no consequences. How do you think about that? And if you want to work this in, or we can do this separately, you advocate for accountability over punishments. And how are those concepts fundamentally different?
Ooh, yeah. Accountability involves an actual internal transformation. Accountability involves participation by someone who's engaged in harm in actually making it right and doing something to fix the harm they've caused. That's accountability. Punishment does not cause accountability. Punishment can make things worse. So no, I am not advocating for a consequence-free world. I don't want to live in a consequence-free world either. I don't think any of us do. What I'm advocating for is, right now our legal system policy is set up in a way that's very emotional. We want to punish people who we're afraid of or who we're mad at. And I say this, by the way, with a certain amount of pleasure as a woman holding a microphone. Like, I don't think policy should be emotional. I think we need to be rational and data-oriented, evidence-based, actually. If we look at the data, what we see is accountability works. Restorative justice programs where both a survivor of crime and the person who's engaged in harm choose to take part in a confrontation and a reckoning, and they come to terms, and the person who's done harm can start to make it right. That has amazing long-term impact in terms of that person no longer engaging in harm. Much better than what our prisons can do. When we talk about San Francisco, I think there's something really important to emphasize, which is we as a society don't really understand deterrence very well. We mistake punishment for being deterrent when it doesn't seem to actually be that deterrent. Now, the reason why, when I say it, you're going to be like, I did know this. When people engage in harm, like nobody's out there committing a crime thinking they're going to get caught. They think they're not going to get caught. So no one's out there saying, well, if this bag contains fentanyl, my sentence will be this much longer than this other bag that does not. No, nobody's thinking. They think they're not going to get caught, which means that the likelihood of getting caught is very deterrent, but the severity of punishment is not that deterrent. So when you have a city where police response times get real slow, the likelihood of getting caught goes through the floor. Now, I mentioned police by necessity because it's often the only option people have for who responds to interrupt an act of harm in progress. We don't have to have that be police. We can have, and by the way, I'm going to say something, I really think police agree with me on this. Police should not be the be-all, end-all, multi-tool, fix-it-everything person of a society. When you have, for example, a form of harm in progress that's driven by a mental health situation or substance use disorder or desperation and poverty of a very particular type, police, that's not what they signed up to do. They didn't sign up to be social workers. But alternative first response teams were people who are actually trained in mental health crises and de-escalation and social work, where they can be the ones who show up and interrupt whatever's going on. They can be just as deterrent because it's the interruption that's deterrent, not the badge and not the gun and not the punishment.
Yeah. We should note, there's some phenomenal programs that we have here in California, and our office has really fought for something called the Right Grant. So a number of advocates put some of the most data-driven programs, successful programs, into something called the Right Grant. And we've fought, and Senator Scott Wiener of San Francisco, when he was BIN budget chair the last 2 years, really fought and made this happen for us. But these are programs like GRIP, Guiding Rage into Power, phenomenal program. If you ever get to go to a GRIP graduation at San Quentin, I highly recommend it. It's got about a 1% recidivism rate and is really dramatically it's all about accountability and how victims come in and meet with the groups. And it's a year-long program. Defy Ventures, that I've been very involved in, I rented a bus in December, took folks out to teach people entrepreneurships in prison. So we have some great programs here, but particularly around this accountability piece, I've seen the results itself. Thank you. We got a lot to get through here, so I'll try to keep it moving. Is it true? And I mentioned, and Santa Clara County, where you worked, it also has some really good rehabilitation work being done there as well. I did want to note: is it true that a large fraction of inmates are neurodivergent, i.e., ADHD, with learning difficulties? How would you?
That's a great question. I don't have the precise study ready to pull up for you. I will say that a majority of people who are living in confinement have some kind of mental health diagnosis. If not, when they go in, obviously periods of confinement can cause real mental health struggles. I don't know the data on neurodivergence. It's a really interesting question.
This says, last week we had the San Francisco DA, Brooke Jenkins, speak at the club. You two seem cut from the same cloth. How often do you work closely with DAs? I don't know.
Really?
I don't know. Well, anyway, that was a question. But how often do you work closely with DAs?
Well, as a public defender, I worked proximate to them every day. I will say, in writing this book, I took a lot of care to interview former prosecutors because I didn't want my perspective to be the only perspective in the book. But I also wanted to know stuff about what was going on inside their offices. Like my perception had been as a defender that I would watch people who'd clearly gone into prosecution to change the system from the inside or to do good things. I would watch them burn out really, really fast and leave the work, and go into private practice and become defense attorneys. But I wanted to talk to them about why, because my perception is that of an outsider, right? And the stories I heard of how they were pressured on the job were absolutely heartbreaking. I mean, one prosecutor I interviewed told me that, he had gone into this work because there had been domestic violence in his family and he'd been really driven to protect survivors, which is an incredibly beautiful reason to become a lawyer. And in his job, he had wanted to find restorative solutions for people. He'd wanted to think outside the box. He'd wanted to be creative. He'd wanted to think about the root causes of what was driving a person to engage in harm and solve that, which, by the way, that's the right answer, right? Like, the right answer should be, what do we do to make sure the bad thing never happens again? That's the safety answer. And instead of being able to pursue that, he was actually in a position where he started sending white colleagues into offices, into his meetings with his superior to ask for deals he wanted, because he would get told that he only wanted that deal because he was black and so was the defendant. Now,
Hopefully not in California.
Not in California.
Okay, good.
But I think we need to hear more from prosecutors about what they are experiencing, because there are many of them who actually want to do root cause analysis and think creatively and be professionally rewarded for it.
Yeah.
But as long as people are professionally rewarded for maximizing convictions, we can't get what we actually want out of prosecution, which is them meeting their ethical duty to do justice, a high degree of accuracy, no more wrongful convictions, review of convictions that might have been wrong, and crucially, restorative solutions that actually solve problems instead of just resorting to the punishment we know doesn't work. We need those people to be promoted.
We do. And I will say, I've been part of a Rodell Fellowship, which is kind of half Democrats, half Republicans, and you do, and it's the first California cohort. So we have a number of DAs, a number from red counties, and some of them become quite good friends. And one of them is married to a public defender, actually. But they're actually, I run things, I run things by them now, and it's been quite interesting. We had a couple people want to talk about the fallout in the public defender's office in Minnesota as a downstream consequence of the glut of immigration and ICE cases overwhelming the system. There's another question about LA Public Defender's Office right now and representing undocumented folks and how the system can handle it. So I'm going to combine those two. But to what extent does our constitutional right to representation actually exist when the system is stressed?
That's a great question. The first thing I want to say is, I believe that an actual constitutional right to representation is a right to representation that's as good as what rich people can pay for. I think that assuming that poor people are only entitled to some lesser category of service that doesn't take into consideration their livelihood, their custody of their children, their ability to remain in this country, their education and their future, which is what people pay for when they pay for a legal team. They want a legal team that considers all of those things. I don't think that it is adequate unless we are creating free and equal justice, not just something free. Defenders are, and I've been saying this for a couple of years now, defenders are the last bastion for many people against government overreach. We live in a country where we tend to channel our social problems, our culture wars, our political issues. We shove it all into the criminal courts. You don't like what somebody's doing, prosecute them for it. And we're seeing that writ large right now. Where when we shove culture war issues into the criminal courts, the person who becomes the protector of individual liberty, of the individual against the government, of the Constitution, that's a public defender. When public defenders are overwhelmed by a quantity of cases that no lawyer could possibly handle. There was an ethics opinion in Oregon about whether a public defender was the same as a regular lawyer in terms of what they could be forced to do. Should public defenders have completely different standards than every other lawyer? The answer is no. When we say that people are entitled to a right to counsel, we cannot crush those counselors so thoroughly that the right is dissolved. Especially when we consider that the defenders are everyone's champion. Should the government ever turn against you or not like what you're doing or who you are or what you believe in, it may be a defender standing by your side who fights for your right to exist. And I think that the more we think of them as a public resource, the more we can shield them from crushing and dissolution.
Someone asked about speaking to youth court, and we mentioned earlier the bill that we're working on and your own personal experience. But again, we're trying to have judges choose as less restrictive and even post-adjudication. But youth court, does it work? Was the question.
Does it work? For what? People go to work there. I think some, obviously I'm the beneficiary of a judge who made it work. But he made it work in spite of the system, not because of it. We need to treat kids like kids. I don't think that's a radical idea. One of the things that's most painful, I think, as a defender practicing in the juvenile system is that they don't have the same rights as grown-ups, but they face the same perils. And even though they're facing the same perils, they don't get the same rights because the system has decided that their consequence is merely an adjudication. It is not a conviction. We've drawn an imaginary legal line here, and we're going to call one thing one name and one thing another name. And if it's just an adjudication, you don't get, for example, the right to a jury trial. That's a really big deal because it means that there's only one person, the judge, deciding about your conduct. And in this country, as we've just seen a whole bunch of grand juries refusing to indict cases that they disagree with because those cases don't match community norms. And we've just seen a bunch of juries refusing to convict because the case that's brought them does not adhere to their values as a community. And so, for example, stripping children of that right strips children of the right to have their conduct evaluated by a community instead of by an individual. We also have this really difficult tension where we're trying to protect the privacy of children, which is, of course, very important. But that also shuts out public scrutiny of what's happening in these courtrooms. I mean, I can say as a defender, being in juvie court with a good judge can be great. With a judge who is not well suited to treating children and to thinking of restorative options, and a judge who is very punitive, it is the most terrifying hell in the world to watch bad things happen to children and not have your usual toolkit to be able to stop it. There's a study in the book showing that, judges whose preferred sports team had recently lost were sentencing children more harshly. And that's just being human, right? Like judges don't know. They don't know that they're like mad that the Eagles lost and so they're going to send this kid to prison. But we need... So that was for you. We need better controls and better training and also better support for judges to understand their own perspectives and biases. So there's a lot of things that could make youth court better. But I will say this. If the North Star is, are we treating kids like kids who have a future, like kids who have potential, like kids who are not a threat, then yes, then it's a good improvement.
Mm-hmm. Winifred, sometime to wrap up, I do want to note a couple things. Even though I've talked about the decrease in our prison population, we still are spending probably about $15 billion a year in California. Would you say that? About $15-16 billion a year in California. That's obviously money that could be spent on education, on other priorities that we have here in the state. So just something to think about. We have done good work on some of these other areas of reintegration on elections. For example, I passed a bill that has to be a direct feed from CDCR to the elections office, so to restore people's voting rights.
That is spectacular.
Yeah.
And California is unique among states in the level of restoration that's available.
Yeah, so we're working on a number of areas, and feel free to come up to us afterwards. And so I was going to say, two things as you wrap up. What do you want readers? I'm going to ask you one question for you, and then one selfish question. So, number one, what do you want readers to feel or understand better when they finish the book?
Oh, I love that question. Thank you for that. That's a gift. I want people to feel excited. And I know that sounds weird because I've just told you 40 million bad things. But half of this book is beautiful innovation. It's solutions. It's stuff that's been proven. It's stuff that's already implemented around the country that just has to be replicated and scaled up. And some of it is dead simple. I mean, I'll tell you, like, after school programs for kids can reduce youth involvement in crime by up to 50%. Right? Like fixing up dilapidated houses increases property values, makes the neighborhood nicer, and drops crime around those houses by around 20%. Simple things. Sometimes interventions that make our neighborhoods more livable overall. I mean, access to healthcare. There are jurisdictions in which the size of the jail population is more tied to the availability of mental health care than to the actual crime rate. So the stuff we want to solve anyway as a people, right? Access to healthcare, access to housing, having somewhere for our kids to go after school, and having a neighborhood that we want to spend time in. These things actually make us safer. And they're doable. And so there's like multiple benefits for one intervention that is feasible and not as difficult as like solving climate change, bless us, or building a warp engine so we can leave this planet. So I want people to leave this book with excitement and hope and really, really, really good ideas to take to their local lawmakers and to promulgate in the world. And oh yeah, all the facts you need to like beat your super carceral uncle who comes to Thanksgiving with his bad ideas.
Well, since you mentioned after school, I want to cite our governor, who's been a real leader in after school programs and the first partner and community schools. This whole notion of community schools we've put a lot of money into. And also even like things like free meals at schools, right? I think
feed our kids.
Feed our kids.
Kids are safer when
Access
they're fed.
to mental health. We're getting a blinking light there, but I do want to ask you, what advice do you have for us here in California? More things you think we can do.
You all in California are so good at coming up with good ideas, and you're not always good at holding on to them. And so what I want you to know is the fast stuff is a trick. Disappearing someone into a prison feels like you've solved the problem right then and there, but you haven't. You've actually just postponed the problem or moved it to a different place, which is inside prison walls. The stuff that actually works really well is slow and takes investment. So if you want to build a world where the crime rate is even lower, and by the way, we're at a historical low in our crime rate right now because of many reforms that have happened since 2020. But if you want to keep that going and you want to live in a world where we don't even need prisons anymore, you have to help people be patient and wait for the effect to take place. You can't measure the data after 6 months, or you can't measure a policy in which, a reform was made but no investment was followed. You need time and investment. And with time and investment, a state like California that has such good ideas can really, really lead the world in terms of innovation in this sector. But you got to be patient.
Yeah. Well, I want to shout out mentors like Van Jones. I started working with him when he was at Ella Baker Center. We had Full Circle Fund. Started working with him, 23, 24 years ago. And there's so many great advocates in California and folks like Smart Justice. They're actually taking legislators to, I haven't been yet, but they actually take legislators to Norway to sort of see what that model looks like in other areas. And again, shout out to the governor with the San Quentin. He's trying to remodel it. I haven't been there yet to see sort of what their plans are, but I know Jared on my team has been. So
I'm going next Wednesday. I'll let you know how it is.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Well, I want to just thank you for taking the time out of your busy work life and running a nonprofit that I know, because one of my friends is involved there, how much work you put in to write this book.
Thank you.
I hope everyone will get a copy, because there's so many good anecdotes and things that'll wake you up, but also good solutions. So want to thank you, and thank you for inviting me to be your interlocutor here today
Thanks for
at
coming.
the Commonwealth Club, and to many great folks I know in the audience who are public defenders or advocates or people that I know personally and you know personally. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Oh.